This episode of FineScale Modeler's New Product Rundown features Roden's C-5, Takom's M31, Trumpeter's J-31, Flyhawk's Prince of Wales, and ICM's I-16.
New Product Rundown, proudly brought to you by Hobbyco, distributors of fine model kits from Italy, and by HobbyZone USA, the source for all your workbench storage needs. I'm Aaron Skinner. Welcome to New Product Rundown, the show where Elizabeth Nash and I give you a peek inside some cool new kits.
We come into your lives twice a month on your computer, phone, or tablet to give you tips on how you can expand your stash. You're welcome.
And first up, a kit that a lot of you have been asking for, according to our most wanted kit surveys, a 1:144 scale C-5. This one's from Roden.
One of the largest aircraft ever built, Lockheed's Galaxy has served in the U.S. Air Force since 1969.
Modernization aims to keep the aircraft flying until 2040, although the C-5M fleet is currently grounded while they investigate nose gear failures.
This kit represents the earlier C-5B, built in the 1980s.
Beneath the striking box art, clearly based on photos of a Galaxy taking off from Oshkosh, Wisconsin, lurks a bunch of gray plastic dominated by large fuselage halves.
Even in 1:144 scale, the aircraft is more than 20 inches long. Fine, consistent recessed panel lines mark the surface. The outlines of the front and rear loading doors are slightly heavier, so they should pop under paint and weathering.
The lap joint for the wing root fairing might be a little too pronounced on the upper side, but it's not a difficult fix with a little sanding.
You'll need to be careful handling the fuselage during construction because there are several thin blade antennas molded along the join.
The tail cone and nose are separate. The latter includes sharply molded lightning diverters on the radome.
The massive tail is divided in half, and the rudder is separate and apparently posable in the rounded recess. The horizontal stabilizers feature separate elevators.
The wings are a highlight with fine panel lines and separate ailerons, and the kit provides parts to pose the leading edge slats and flaps up or down. The single-piece slats have separate actuators, whereas the flaps are positioned with the help of pins.
The engine's two-part bodies are detailed with cones, rear bypass sections with thin trailing edges, and one-piece intakes that include fans. The downside is that the distinctive blow-in doors are represented with just raised bumps in between and no engraved detail.
Other features include a cockpit with seat, controls, and a rear bulkhead, detailed landing gear bays with frames and molded structure, decent gear legs for the scale, and a gazillion wheels molded in halves. There's actually just 28, but that's more than most aircraft.
Clear plastic provides the windshield and several portholes.
Decals give markings for a single overall gray Air Mobility Command Galaxy based at Travis Air Force Base.
So there you have it, Roden's replacement for the venerable Otaki kit, first released in 1971.
We'll see how it goes together in a future issue of FineScale Modeler magazine.
Next, we have Takom's 1/35 scale M31 tank recovery vehicle.
The real thing was based on the M3. Takom bases its kit on its M3 Lee chassis.
Equipped with a crane capable of recovering between 5 and 15 tons, the M31 also carried a winch to move stuck vehicles.
As you'd expect, many of the sprues are identical to those supplied with either Takom's early or late production Lee, including the upper hull, casemate roof, running gear, and tracks.
All of these parts show well-molded rivets, bolts, and panel lines.
So what's new? Well, let's start with the lower hull, which has a cutout to fit pulleys.
The crane mounts on the opening for the 37mm gun on the turret. It comprises C-channel side rails with zigzag braces, mounts, spare drive sprockets, brackets, pulleys, hydraulic legs to support the crane off the tank, a new hatch to replace the commander's cupola, and a fake 37mm gun barrel. Braided copper wire supplies the crane cable.
In place of the sponson 75mm gun, the M31 has a hatch, which is fitted with a fake gun barrel. There are tow hooks front and back, spare road wheels, track links, and tool and stowage boxes crowd just about every empty spot on the hull.
The only clear parts in the kit are the headlights. A small photo-etched fret supplies light brush guards, an engine screen, and exhaust retaining straps.
Decals provide markings for 5 American M31s, 2 in North Africa and 1 each in Sicily, Italy, and France.
Takom is using its newly tooled M3 to good effect as it continues to produce good-looking kits, such as this M31.
Yeah, it would look great as part of a recovery diorama.
From Trumpeter, we have a 1/72 scale Shenyang J-31.
Also known as the Gyrfalcon and officially known as the FC-31, this Chinese fighter is in testing now and expected to enter service within the next few years.
Externally similar to the F-22 and F-35, the aircraft is thought to have stealth capabilities.
Typical of modern jet fighter models, the fuselage, marked by fine panel lines, is split into upper and lower halves. The latter incorporates cutouts for the wheel wells and weapon bay.
The nose bay, main gear bays, and weapon bay, as well as their doors, have molded details.
Missiles and bombs are provided to fill the last.
The intakes end with blanking plates, but detailed jet pipes are provided.
Cockpit detail includes molded controls on the tub, multi-part ejection seat, and instrument panel. The flaps and slats are separate, but none of the control surfaces are posable without modification.
The canopy is provided as two parts, but there's no provision to display it open.
A small photo etch fret gives a harness for the seat.
Decals and color diagrams provide markings for two aircraft, one for the prototype at Zhuhai Air Show in 2014. The other appears to be as it would look in operational markings.
There will likely to be changes to the Gyrfalcon before it enters service, but it's fun to see a kit of it before then and to compare it to other new fighters. Moving on, here's Flyhawk's 1/700 scale HMS Prince of Wales.
The King George V battleship had a short but active life.
Yeah, commissioned on January 19th, 1941. The ship was sunk by Japanese aircraft on December 10th of the same year.
In between, the 745-foot-long ship took part in the hunt for the Bismarck,
Carried Winston Churchill across the Atlantic to a secret meeting with Franklin Roosevelt,
escorted supply convoys through the Mediterranean,
before reporting to operations with Force Z in Singapore, where she was when war broke out in the Pacific.
Flyhawk has a reputation for intricate detail, and that's clear in this kit, which can be built waterline or full hull.
Above the waterline, the hull features fine hull panels, recessed portholes with fine eyebrow gutters, and raised belt armor.
Most of the superstructure is molded in sections with portholes, hatches, supports under upper decks, and thin splinter shields. Additional decks feature the same finesse.
Slide molded funnels feature separate tops.
The three turrets comprise one-piece upper sections with bottom plates and slide molded 14-inch guns that have open muzzles.
Secondary armament, including the 16 5¼ guns and QF 2-pounder anti-aircraft guns, look terrific.
Most of the ship's boats have detail inside and out.
Fine details are Flyhawk's forte, as seen with masts, catapults, searchlights, and the tiny supermarine walrus that can be built with the wings folded or extended for flight.
This Deluxe Edition kit includes a couple of extra detail sets, including turned metal barrels for the 14 and 5-inch guns, and resin ventilators for the deck.
There's also a photo etch set with a full complement of railings, replacement catapults, radar, crow's nest, funnel tops, ladders, and rigging for the walrus.
A tiny cartograph decal sheet provides Royal Navy ensigns and national insignia for the walrus.
A color diagram shows how the Prince of Wales was apparently camouflaged in December 1941. The instructions note that there are many questions about the proper colors.
As with Flyhawk's other kits, this one will reward experienced builders with a very detailed model.
Finally, let's take a look at ICM's 1/32 scale Polycarpov I-16.
In many ways, this looks like a scaled-up version of the Ukrainian company's 1/48 scale Ishak.
And that's a good thing because that was a terrific kit, probably the best I-16 on the market.
Along with this one now. Reflecting the real thing, there's not a lot of surface detail on the fuselage halves, just a lap joint for the fairing at the base of the vertical stabilizer and subtle fabric over frames on the tail itself.
The upper wing halves have subtle raised panel detail inboard and fabric over frames outboard. The one-piece lower wing looks similar and includes the landing gear bays.
All of the control surfaces are separate and posable, increasing the display opportunities.
The cockpit comprises a floor, seat, frames, instrument panel with decal dials and a clear front, and controls.
ICM represents the engine with cylinder bank split in half, push rods, intake manifold, engine mount, and exhausts.
All of that fits inside a multi-part cowl with front panel and movable shutters.
A pair of machine guns mounts into the upper cowl, and the two-blade propeller gets sandwiched by the two-part spinner.
The landing gear legs are grounded by two-part wheels, and there's detail molded inside the doors.
In addition to the windshield, the clear parts include the gun sight and position lights.
Decals provide markings for 4 Soviet I-16s, 3 green over blue, the other over all aluminum.
Looks like this should be a relatively easy build, and the finished model won't be too big.
Look for reviews of it, along with the M31, J-31, Prince of Wales, and C-5 in upcoming issues of FineScale Modeler magazine.
And you can see more new products in the March issue, on sale now.
Thanks for visiting FineScale.com. I'm Aaron Skinner.
And I'm Elizabeth Nash. We'll see you next time. So there you have it, Roden's replacement for the venerable Otaki kit, first released in 1971.
Sorry.
Step on my line, I'll step on you.
I don't think you can get that high.